What if the key to profound inner peace, to abundance, to fulfillment lies not in striving or making something happen, but what if the key lies in not doing or in surrender? I think the teens these days have figured that out when they say, "Brah, you're doing too much." So we're going to lean into this month a little bit of the teachings of the concept of woo-wee in Taoism. What I love about the science of mind, this faith, this philosophy, this way of life that was synthesized by Dr. Ernest Holmes, is that he pulls from the wisdom of many ancient teachings and philosophies and world religions. And I was studying more and reading about Taoism, and I'm like, yeah, every time I dig into something, I'm like, well, I think I'm a Taoist. And then I'm like, well, I think I'm a Buddhist. Well, I might be Hindu. And I'm like, I am. Science of mind. The thread, the golden thread that connects it all. So I hope that you enjoy this journey as much as I have in this discovery of this teaching and this wisdom of Taoism. So woo-wee literally translates to inexertion or non-action, right? Effortless, ease. And it encourages us to live in harmony with the Tao. So the Tao is the natural way of the universe. Sometimes it's just called the way. There's a beautiful chant that we sung years ago with our Taze collective about the way knows the way. The way knows the way. So rather than trying to force our individual will upon life, trying to control the circumstances or the outcome or having expectations that things need to go a certain way, woo-wee invites us to simply allow things, to let things happen in natural order and trust that everything works out in whatever way it needs. In the Tao Te Ching, it says, the way does nothing, and yet nothing remains unaccomplished. Right. So my Western socialized mind challenges that idea. How can I do nothing and yet anything occur, right? What our socialized mind from this Western perspective would tell us is that we have to work hard, we have to hustle, we have to make it happen, right? And everything is more nuanced, right? There's this paradox. So it's not that we become complacent or lazy or just kind of whatever, man, right? There's still the living with intention that comes when we are connected with that source of the I am, the divine, the way, and allowing it to lead and guide us. So it's not a doing nothing, as the ego would tell us, like, great, I'm just going to sit on my couch and eat bonbons and Cheetos and be in bliss. Because our bodies would respond in such a way that we would not be in so much bliss. So as we look in this idea of the surrender experiment, of how to be in the flow of life and surrender to what is, I invite you to open your perspective a bit, to challenge with curiosity, how the ego mind might say, yeah, but, right? And be open to releasing the reins of control just a little bit and to tap into that infinite wisdom within to see where you are guided. By trusting, and that is the key, trusting life, trusting that infinite wisdom, the higher source within, as opposed to our small-minded self that is attached to thinking that we know the right answer and that we know what's best for all, right? So by trusting in this flow, we may disagree or dislike some of the things that occur. We can feel disappointment, and we may even be resentful from time to time, and that's okay. To acknowledge and to feel and to notice that resistance, but not to get stuck in that. To acknowledge the feelings, and then realize that what is actually causing the suffering is not what is occurring, not the circumstance, but your resistance to it. Because your ego had something else in mind in order to, as it thinks, feel safe or secure. So the invitation is to surrender the ego's way of feeling safety and give over to the infinite's way of peace, knowing that we are always safe and secure and supported by this loving presence. So living in the flow of the way, it can happen in the little moments of our lives and in the bigger picture. So I want to kind of break this down in two examples. So there's a book called The Tao of Pooh. Some of you may be familiar with it. Jonathan Hoff, I believe. And I'm going to share a story from that. I remember I was given this book as a child, and then I started to look at it, I'm like, this is not a kid's book. And it has profound wisdom. So Pooh, we're all familiar with the honey-loving, big-bellied bear. Pooh woke up one morning and heard that it was his friend Eeyore's birthday. So he went home and tried to find a suitable present to bring to his friend. Piglet also wanted to give Eeyore something, so he too went home to find something special. Pooh decided that the best present he could give would be a jar of honey. So he grabbed it and he started on his journey to his friend Eeyore's house. But along the way, probably a butterfly came by or a little bee landed on a flower, so Pooh stopped and engaged with the flower and then realized he was a little hungry. Started eating some of the honey. Sat there, ate all the honey in the jar, and then had a moment again of, what was I doing with this jar? Oh, right, it's Eeyore's birthday. I just ate all the honey. But he was willing to pivot. And he thought, you know what? Instead of panicking, this jar would make a really good gift for Eeyore. So then he stopped by his friend Owl's house and he said, Owl, will you please inscribe in this jar the words, a very happy birthday? And then he brought it to Eeyore. Eeyore found the jar very useful and was very delighted. And in fact, he thought the jar would be much more useful than a jar of honey. Eeyore didn't like honey much. It would have sat on his shelf being nothing but a jar of honey collecting dust. And then Piglet showed up with some flowers he picked. Oh, and he put the flowers in the jar and had a beautiful gift. What does this teach us? Well, first of all, admit it. Some of you, myself included, thought, well, wasn't that a little selfish of Pooh? Like, he should have stayed focused and not eaten, given over to his desires, and forgot what he was doing. So first noticing, right, where do we have judgments? So releasing the judgments. But what this tells us is when we are totally in the moment and trusting the way, all of our needs can be met and something greater can emerge. So Pooh at first thought this would be a good gift. Why? Because he loved honey and he had it, right? So he was kind of coming from that ego mind of like, my friend must like what I like. But then Pooh got caught up in the moment as he is so wonderfully able to do. And the way knew the way and presented something new for that jar. And it ended up being the perfect gift. So this is an example of a moment by moment living in the flow, right? And I was reflecting on our experience yesterday. So a dozen of us or so gathered here yesterday for our cacao ceremony and ecstatic dance. And what was created was an environment in this room guided by the music and the intention of being completely present. There was no talking. That's one of the rules, the guidelines, which brings us from our from our head into our heart, right? Out of our mind. And then moving our bodies and connecting with one another and with our inner space opens us up to that flow. And what I noticed for myself is I began to move around the space inspired by the flow and the creativity. And then I was called to pick up the rain stick and dance with the rain stick. I went over and I engaged with the prayer flags and danced with the fabric a bit. And none of this was with thought. At one point, the song came on and I grabbed the markers and the paper and a whole thing occurred. I don't know. I can't tell you what it was. But it was in the flow. And then as we kind of ended and reflected back in that space of meditation, all of a sudden, all these creative ideas came. So I know for me personally, when I come from a place of trying to create, my mind is very active, and it can come up with a whole lot of things. And what I discover when I open to the flow, and whatever gets you in the flow, maybe it's not the music and the dancing as it is me, but perhaps it's a nature walk or sitting outside or connecting over a beautiful cup of tea with a friend, meditating. What I notice is when I'm in the flow, the ideas happen like this, and then the people and the resources and the connection, and yes, this, and with ease, effortless ease, things occur. So we can go about life having an idea, an expectation, and making it happen. That's one way. And what I've discovered is that way can be very exhausting. It can lead to congestion and feeling worn out. And when we open to the way and to the flow, those ideas come with this divine urge that is like an energetic magnet attracting the resources and the ideas for those who are also being called to support this idea and vision. And it happens like that. Y'all, this vision for this room being painted and redecorated, like, occurred within a week, and people just showed up and it happened, right? That's what occurs by living in the flow in these moment-to-moment ways. Walking through life like Pooh. Winnie the Pooh. So, this is the day-to-day mindfulness practice. This is living in the flow of life. And there are the bigger moments of life that, I don't know about you, but for me, it can be a little bit more challenging to practice the surrender. These are the cycles of birth and death. Surrendering and letting go of our timeline, right? So Heather and I had the intention of having a child, and it was years before our beautiful, perfect child came into existence. And that's a whole long story, and maybe I'll share it one day, but just know that through that process, the surrender to the timing and the right and perfect donor and the way was filled with a lot of emotions, up and down, getting excited, feeling disappointed, the grief, the love, the challenge, will it ever happen? And, we can look back now, and in a way, it just kind of feels like a blip in time as we're living with the beauty of our now 8.5-year-old. But that time, that year and a half, 2 years plus, 3 years, yes, the 3 years felt like an eternity when you're in it, right? Similar to those cycles and surrendering at the beginning and the end of life. So many of you know that this has been very close to my experience, as in December, I ushered my Aunt Sue, into the transition from her physical body, and sitting with her in that time. And those days, again, there's a timelessness to it. And there's moments of getting in your head and feeling like, just to be real, y'all, right? Like, is she ever going to die? Anyone who's been there knows what I'm talking about. If you don't, you're like, well, that seems kind of cold. And then there's moments of surrender to, like, this is the most glorious, beautiful experience, and I cannot imagine, like, the gratitude I had, the gift of being the one to be there for her that. And then how life occurs when you can't control this, I tell you that. Little did I know, immediately following that, I would be doing the same process for my mom. And those next few months, you have to dig into some deep place of surrender and trust. And as Dr. Andrea talked about last week, the physical anxiety that emerges when my mind and my brain is not willing to accept the reality of what's occurring. And it's like, no, this can't be happening. This can't happen now. Like, I'm not done grieving this. This cannot be happening. It's happening. And then, to kind of allow my mind to wrap my head around and to to shift from the, okay, this is happening, and to accept that, and then again, lean into the beauty of the process. And anyone who has been present for a birth or a death, there's an inexplicable energy, that closeness of the thinning of the veil. And I remember I was present. I was the one in the room with my dad as well, 25 some years ago, and 20 years ago. And then with the birth of our daughter, it was in that moment that I was like, this feels the same. And I couldn't explain it, but I was like, this feels the same. So this idea of surrender, I bring this up to say it's a deep process, and that's why we're going to be talking about this for the next few weeks, how we truly can move through all the emotions that occur, the resistance, the anxiety, be present with that, and realize the gift and accepting that we are not in control and that there is something greater and that the way knows the way. And in that surrender and that trust and that allowing for life to unfold perfectly in divine right timing, there is a great beauty to be experienced. And this is not like I get it now, so I move through my life with the ease and I can accept anything that comes my way and trust that, this must be divine timing, right? It's a process. We get caught up. Our ego will say, no, not today, my friend. And, well, I don't know how, y'all, I feel like my life has been a country song the past few months. So 2 months ago, our precious dog died. And it was just one of those things but yet I intuitively knew that was going to happen. Like I kind of sat there and she was old and was so, when I started to pay attention, I was like, And she was my support animal, that was, But yet I saw the perfection in it and how she guided me through this time. Like we got Charlie right when Cadence was born and all of this, and she was, we fostered hers, and she was much older than we thought she was when we got her. And with Charlie, I was really able to move into acceptance with that one and just be present with the love. Well, now our cat is sick. And with this one, y'all, I'm like, no. Now this is too much. Yeah. And so, I can't control anything, but I am taking her to the vet and getting her medication and doing healing prayers and Reikiing her and loving her. And at the same time, slowly letting my mind adjust to the fact that it may be her time soon. And I'm noticing myself in this process. But I know I accepted, I moved through Charlie, and then I looked at Kit, and I was like, but not you, right? My ego went right to, but you got to stick around a little bit more, Kat. And then, so we don't know what anything is for. And if we would like to experience more peace and open to a deeper experience of the beauty of life and life's transitions, I invite you into this journey, this experiment of surrender. And to walk this path with me, I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but I have had some recent experience, and I do know that surrendering and allowing brings such a greater peace than trying to force and control, manipulate, and make things go the way I want them to go. So this week, I invite you to notice where perhaps you are in resistance to what is occurring in your life. Whether it be the little thing, the unexpected traffic that now makes you late to the important meeting, surrender. Or the big things, the life transitions, the relationship changing, the moving, the new career, death, life, rebirth, all of these things in our life that will happen, right? These things will happen. Change occurs. So I invite you to notice, whether it be the little moments or the big picture of life, where are you perhaps in resistance to what is occurring? And the invitation is then, with the awareness, to breathe in and let go, to trust the flow of life and drop fully into the present moment, into your heart, to know that you are safe and that this too is for you. By asking the universe, how is this for me? Not why is this happening? Oh God, why is this happening? What if we switch that to, oh, universe, how is this for me? What is for me to know now? Surrender. And in trusting in this flow of the universe, we discover the joy and the beauty and the peace of life unfolding in this moment and rise above the confines of the ego and the limitations of the mind and the small self in order to experience our own grand rising of a life of peace and deep fulfillment. Are you ready to jump in this experiment with me? Yes, they say reluctantly. Are you ready to surrender? Yes. Whew. All right. Let us pray. So I open my heart and my mind to recognize the one life that is love, this one life that is the way. The peace, the love, the joy, the beauty, the freedom that is life experiencing itself as me, as you, in this body, in this time, for a deep, fulfilling reason and purpose. To love and to be loved. To know ourselves and the divine more fully by surrendering, accepting, and allowing that the way knows the way. How good it is to speak this word from this place of oneness. Knowing that everything is unfolding perfectly in divine right order and divine right timing. As I let go of my small self, my ego mind's perspective of what I think things should be, do, or look like, whether it be in my personal life, in our political sphere, in our environment, in our relationships, big or small, there is no big or small, for truly it is all one. And each is an opportunity to surrender and to know God, to know love, to know life more fully. How is this for me? So I choose this day to surrender, to let go, to let love lead the way, and to crack open my heart in a way I cannot even imagine. So with great gratitude for the recognition and the fulfillment of this prayer, I release my word into the action of the law that always says, yes, my beloved, it is done and it is so. And together we affirm, and so it is.